This is the Select Board meeting of October 17th, 2022. We call the meeting to order, and the first thing we need to do, our chairman is out of town on business. We need to elect a chair and clerk pro tem for this evening. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I move that we nominate Terry Ackerman, Chair Pro Tem.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And a clerk? Do we have a motion?
I move that we appoint Henry Dane Clerk, Pro Tem.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. So our first item of business is the consent agenda.
And I will move to approve the consent agenda with the suggested changes by Terry Ackerman to the February 7th, 2022 minutes.
Okay, all I did was add, where there was a vote to approve Comcast, I added, and with the conditions specified by the engineering department. And also, I'm going to abstain from the October 3rd minutes because I was not at that meeting.
Okay. And on the February 7th, if I may just add, at the very beginning, where it says the meeting will pursuant to, the meeting will now convene, it should say in the select board meeting room and Zoom, and it just says Zoom.
Okay, thank you for catching that. And Mary?
I'm going to abstain from February 7th because I wasn't on the Select Board. But I do have a change to the October 3rd, which is at the bottom of page 1, where it said that Mrs. Hartman asks if the committee was able to find any cost savings from the schematic design changes. And what I said was Mrs. Hartman asks if the committee was able to find any cost savings to offset schematic design changes.
Okay.
They're different.
Shannon, do you have all of those changes? Are you all set? Okay. Then, Henry, do you want to make this motion again with the?
Yeah, I will move that we approve that we approve the minutes presented to the meeting with the amendments that have been proposed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And let's have one more motion for the other consent calendar items then.
All right. I move that we vote to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we now go to the town manager's report.
Thank you and good evening. There is a written report in your packet. I will highlight a couple of the items and then leave some time for questions. We had a community forum last Wednesday on the hazard mitigation plan. This is a report that we are, or plan that we are updating with the help of MAPC. This report allows us to, among other things, allows us to be eligible for state and federal grants of certain types. In the police department, officers assisted with the annual walk, bike, roll events at both Willard and Alcott School last week. That was an event that the officers that participated in particularly enjoyed. From natural resources, the fall volunteer land stewardship programs are in full swing. Last week, they did some work at Haywood Meadow. And this coming week, they will continue that work, which will include replanting of pollinator plugs. In our economic vitality and tourism division, they report that they've had a great start to the fall tourist season, that October visitation with just 11 days has already exceeded all of the visitors we had in 2019. We currently have a total of 12,000 visitors and expect 15 to 18,000 in the fall tourist season. We have a number of tours that are going on, including the daily tour at 1 p.m., which I think I saw yesterday when I was coming through, and it seemed to be pretty well subscribed. There is information on COVID-19. Our positivity rate, 14-day positivity rate, has decreased, but we do believe, as we reported to you many times, that those numbers are probably low because people are testing at home and not reporting to the Board of Health, and that's not going into the state reporting system. Unfortunately, hospitalizations, and particularly ICU hospitalizations, are on the increase, but we have a very high vaccination rate at 91%, and 68% for persons receiving at least their first booster shot. There's information on the last planning board meeting of October 11th, where they took up the 48Y Fitchburg Turnpike project, talked about mobile food trucks. The applications for both the middle school and the Concord Academy Art Center were continued. And the board also decided that it would not move forward with a warrant article for the Thoreau Depot Business District zoning, and will instead take that up after the housing production plan has been completed. And speaking of the housing production plan, there is a committee meeting this Wednesday and an additional meeting on October 25th at 7 p.m. to review draft goals and strategies. The 30th Annual Concord Festival of Authors is underway. That began on Friday, October 13th, and continues through the end of the month. I did want to mention that our Public Works Department is in the process of applying pavement preservation treatments, and we have heard some feedback from residents, and it has not been particularly positive in all cases. The intent of the treatments that we're using are to reduce the rate of deterioration, and so we're trying to bring the PCI, the pavement condition index, back to what it was historically, which for sure was over 70%. It had dropped below that, probably an average of 65%. We're using a bunch of different treatments that are widely used in other communities, but have not necessarily been used here. One of the treatments, the microsurfacing, I think is the one that we're hearing the most about. And this is something that's typically applied in June and July, and we did this about a month ago. And I think going forward, we would be trying to do it earlier in the season. It does require a period of time to dry. And so what we're seeing is that is much slower because the weather, the temperature is cooler, and we've had a lot of rain since we've put that down. So we're definitely hearing about that, and we are going to see how that works in the long term. We are doing our seasonal water main flushing over the next couple of weeks. I just wanted to mention a couple of things that aren't in the report. We did get our new to Concord trolley. We have a hybrid trolley. It is a real trolley. It is on loan through the end of our pilot program, which is November 13th. It went into service, I believe, today. And then just earlier today, we received notification from the Department of Revenue that our 2023 values have received preliminary approval. And so that kicks off our public disclosure window that is now open through October 31st. We do have an information session planned. Board of Assessors, I believe, are doing that on October 26th. There is information on the website, and a news and notices went out on the fiscal 23 values earlier today. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the town manager?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So Carrie, the surface that we're putting on the roads that some people are a little bit upset about, is that, this is going on perfectly good roads, right? I mean, these are in fair condition, and the purpose of this is to extend their life so that.
To extend the life, we're trying to use the most cost-effective treatments to extend the life on roads.
Okay.
Yes.
Are people notified before that happens, or not?
So I would say in most cases, that is our practice. In most cases, we do that.
Okay.
I'm not sure we adhered to that 100% of the time this time around, but that is our practice, that we do that. And sometimes we have people out walking and putting door hangers on homes where people would be affected.
I think some of the confusion was people were saying the road was in perfectly good condition, and they didn't understand that this was really something to preserve it so that we could lower our maintenance costs.
So what I would say is we don't put anything, we're not working on any roads that are at our desired PCI. We're working on roads that are below that to preserve the condition that's there and increase it somewhat, so we're not having to do something more extensive earlier in the life cycle of the road.
Okay, thanks.
Further questions? Okay, thank you very much, Carrie. I don't really have anything for the chair's report, so we'll move on to an update of town council's review on provisions of Christopher Heights.
So we should have town council on Zoom.
I don't see him.
No, I don't either.
What we could do is we could go, it's not quite 6:45, we could go on to the next item and then come back to this. Why don't we do that? So we have an update on Christopher Heights Junction Village project. And I know there are many people interested in speaking tonight, both in person and on Zoom. And I also know that we have a letter in our packet from Grantham saying that they are withdrawing from the project. So I think mostly the select board will listen to comments from the groups and the public that are here. And I'd like to call on Mike Lawson first. And if everyone could please try to limit your comments to, let's say, 3 minutes or less, because we do have many people that have asked to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Lawson, 1695 Lowell Road, a member of the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust and speaking on behalf of the trust. Good evening and thanks for the opportunity to speak with you this evening about the Junction Village Christopher Heights project. The Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust unanimously voted to allocate $1 million to the project and has also voted unanimously to urge the Select Board to write the DHDC in support of the project. I note that these funds we have allocated are already available in the trust and that this allocation does not require any additional appropriation. We prepared a set of slides and submitted them to you, and they are available on the Select Board site by following the meeting materials link. This evening, I would like to summarize these slides and conclude with brief remarks outlining the consequences of not supporting this project. First, a reminder that the Junction Village Christopher Heights project has 83 assisted living units, all of which would qualify as affordable. This project has been in development for almost a decade and will be built on a site given by the state only for affordable housing and open space use. The developer, Grantham Group, has completed similar projects in other towns and has a good reputation with the state. There is preference for Concord residents when opened, subject to state rules on local preference that apply to all such projects. With the additional $1 million the trust has allocated, together with the $2 million pledged by the town, this would bring the per unit cost of 83 units to $36,000. This is, no other affordable housing project could come close to this per unit number. This then is by far the most economical way to add affordable units in Concord. The allocation of funds we've approved and our request for a letter of support is made necessary by the COVID-induced significant inflation, which increased the project cost from $17 to $28 million. This inflation has affected all construction projects, including, as you know, our own middle school project. The state is attempting to help a number of projects with additional tax credits, but has required projects to have additional municipal finance and policy support to be eligible. There is a clear need. Concord has seen no change in affordable housing units in the last decade. The over 65 population in town is now 37% and growing. Without this project, Concord would fall below the 10% and put us at a 40B risk. And smaller houses are vanishing to be replaced by larger less affordable homes in town. If we fail to support this project, Concord will have lost a cornerstone of its affordable housing effort. It has been supported by town meeting votes on numerous occasions. Affordable housing was an important goal of the most recent long-range plan Envision Concord. The project was included in the 2016 Housing Production Plan approved by the Select Board. The project's support was recently reaffirmed unanimously by a vote of the Planning Board. Without this project, there will be no new affordable assisted living units for our elders and no additional tax revenue. As I said before, Concord will fall below the 10% of its subsidized housing inventory. And finally, we may lose the opportunity to move forward with the fossil-free initiative, which may require 10% affordable housing to be eligible, a most reasonable requirement for environmental justice. We urge you to support the project and the Trust's $1 million allocation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Who else would like to speak? Okay, please come up to the microphone. Elise?
Mina's here too, and you've got some, no, sorry, Mina's here, I just wanted to.
Yeah, I see that.
Okay.
Hi, Elise, please identify yourself and your address.
Good evening. I'm Elise Woodward. I live at 379 Garfield Road. As a former co-chair of the Comprehensive Long Range Plan Committee, I urge you to issue a letter in support of the Junction Village project to add 83 units of affordable housing in Concord. Section 4.3 of the Comprehensive Long Range Plan outlined housing goals and strategies aimed primarily at expanding the diversity and affordability of housing options in Concord. Goal 2, Action 2, to support recommendations of the Affordable Housing Funding Task Force was one of the top 10 recommendations presented to the Select Board in 2018. Excuse me. Since that time, citizens of Concord have continued to age. Housing has continued to be unaffordable for many residents, and construction costs have risen dramatically. There has been no change to affordable units in the Concord housing stock and no change for housing for elders in our town. Concord citizens at town meeting have affirmed their support for the Christopher Heights Junction Village project on many occasions. And today, once again, the Select Board is asked to confirm its support for reapplication of state funding by committing dollars from the Affordable Housing Trust. Importantly, your letter of support will carry the added bonus of qualifying the town for eligibility in certain state projects, including the fossil-free demonstration project. The Junction Village project was fine-tuned through many public hearings to include the use of state land to provide open space and affordable housing units for elderly citizens that would not overtax the schools. The Planning Board has reaffirmed its support for this project. It is included in the Housing Production Plan, and countless hours have been contributed by members of several select boards before yours, the CHDC, the Affordable Housing Trust, and other boards and committees to make it a reality. Now is not the time to abandon the project. Please exercise your leadership to sustain the project many town meeting votes have supported, and to respect the partnership of this developer and the contributions of so many citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elise. So we're going to, I see a lot of hands up on Zoom, and I will call on you after we finish the people that are live today. I see someone in the back row. Come up. Moira Walsh. Okay, thank you.
Well, I don't want to repeat any of the wonderful things that have been said, but I have a question. When you opened the meeting, you said that the builder had sent you a letter withdrawing.
Correct.
That was news to me, because as of Friday, that had not happened. Does that mean this is already a done deal? That will change my comments.
Does anyone, let's see, we have it, the date of the letter is October 7th, and we do have it in writing. It says The Grantham Group LLC have decided to terminate the project and withdraw all our pending applications for it. It's in the packet, posted on the website.
Any help on this? I mean, we're sitting here talking about somebody who has withdrawn their support for a project that's 10 years old, that has had every select board. And I listened to your objections. I did, and I researched them. And I understand that you were trying to be good stewards, and that was taken care of by the foundation coming up with the $900,000 to $1 million. All you needed to do was to write a letter of support. And I think the speakers before have told you why that letter of support is so important. And I think that you owe Mr. Grant an apology for all that's gone on for the last 10 years. And I'm not, I've spoken to some of his executives at his different facilities. They have nothing but wonderful things to say about him and the way he runs his facilities. And for this project to die because a select board who was not part of the process decides they're not going to write a letter, I think is outrageous. And we all grew up in the 70s with a website or a bumper sticker that said, think globally and act locally. And I think it's time to act locally and to ask for that letter to be rescinded and for you folks to write a letter of support. I looked into your issues around services, and what I was told by the people I spoke to who run these facilities is the majority of people who live in these facilities do come from the communities that they are in, the Marlborough one particularly. And that the other people that they seem to service are people in their 30s and 40s and 50s who want their parents to be near them. That's the other group of people that are serviced in these facilities. I did a lot of research, and I implore you to think about your seniors at this point and to think about the little bit of money that is going to be spent compared to the way we spend other monies. And I just am beyond myself that this is being considered to be dissolved after so many people have worked it hard and approved it. And I implore you to work hard to change his mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alice Kaufman, you had requested to speak.
Hi, good evening. I'm Alice Kaufman. I live at 1615 Lowell Road, and I'm one of the authors of the Concord bylaw that requires new construction to be fossil fuel free. The select board routinely has to make decisions on how best to meet the varying expectations, desires, and needs of the Concord community. With your support of Junction Village, you can meet two very important values of our town: honoring our commitment to providing at least 10% of our housing stock to be affordable, and the town's commitment to meeting the threat of climate change by following through on the town's climate action and resiliency plan. I'll speak to the environmental imperative embedded in this decision of the board to support the Grantham project. Concord has a history of on protecting the environment and being environmental leaders. We committed to the Paris Climate Accord, developed a climate action and resiliency plan, strengthened town zoning to reflect the urgency of climate action, and passed by near unanimous consent a town bylaw requiring new construction to be fossil fuel free. But we also petitioned the legislature for home rule so that we can implement this new bylaw. With the debate of financing the increased project costs for Junction Village off the table because the CHDC is now offering the Affordable Housing Trust Funds for this project, a very good use of those funds, in my opinion, the only thing standing in the way of progress is the consent of the select board to the project. The Massachusetts Progressive Climate Bill, reached through negotiations with the state legislature and stakeholders, is rightly concerned when ensuring that those residents most at risk, those living in frontline communities, all of our residents in the state, share in the health benefits of lowered harmful emissions from the burning of fossil fuels. And when they wrote the bill, they wisely allowed the 10 communities that had already gone forward and passed the legislation that said we want to be able to regulate fossil fuels for the fossil fuel market growth. But they also wrote in that that those communities had to then meet the 10% affordability requirement. And you heard eloquently from other speakers what that means to us. And I know that just, I think about a month ago, the town manager sent, with the approval of the select board, sent a letter to the state asking that we keep our position in line for being one of those 10 communities. I reviewed the memo from town council on the subject of the status of home rule and the impact of the 10% affordability requirement, both required for participation in the program. And the rules for participation have not yet been written. Until the rules are finalized next summer, there is no guarantee what the compliance date will be on meeting the 10% affordable housing goal. And I look forward to hearing town council's interpretation of his memo. I guess that was supposed to have been earlier this evening when he's able to join. Is that right?
No, that he's going to be talking about a different.
Oh,
item.
okay, okay. While town council's memo suggests the possibility that we may qualify because of language in the bill, it is couched in language that further call that into question. He writes, the legislation is unfortunately not precise on this issue. And he goes on to say, we intend to see if there's any more guidance coming forward. So there are unknowns of what the state will do. This is a watch and see approach to our future. And I just think there's too much at risk to make assumptions about the state will do or will not do, and that we have an opportunity to take an initiative right now. So we're not the only ones in line. Actually, a lot of other communities have joined that line since we did. Boston, Somerville, Newton are just a few big communities that have joined in that effort to be one of the 10 pilots in the pilot. And it appears that what's standing in our path to achieving both important town priorities, affordable housing and climate change, is your decision to support affordable housing on a piece of land deeded for this express purpose. The Junction Village project is the result of negotiation, community dialogue, design reviews. It's shovel-ready. We ought to not delay, as much of Concord's good intentions lay in the balance here. I urge you to send a letter of support for the Junction Village project.
Thank you very much. Stefan? And thank you, everybody, for keeping all your comments brief since we have so many speakers tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Stefan Bader, 7 River Street. I'm here tonight as a representative of the board of the Concord Housing Authority. We submitted a letter that did not make it into the packet. I apologize for the delay, but it's short and I'll get to the point. The Concord Housing Authority has a history of providing affordable housing to residents of Concord since its inception in 1961. The authority continues to seek additional opportunities to expand the number of available housing units for people with incomes below the Boston area median as determined by HUD and DHCD. At our last monthly meeting, the Concord Housing Authority Board of Commissioners voted to convey their strong opinion that the town of Concord should continue to support creation of the 83-unit Christopher Heights Junction Village Affordable Assisted Living Development. Many of our current senior residents will likely need additional assistance as the years go by. And the least disruptive move for them and their families and friends would be to the type of setting that this development would offer. Social connections are important and could be maintained when living in the same town. A reasonable expectation is that most of the seniors would meet the income requirements for entry into the affordable assisted living facility. We urge the select board to express their support for the project and to endorse the funding offered by the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust to resubmit for state approval. The beneficiaries will include our neighbors and the town as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see another hand in the back there.
Frank Feely, 347 Lexington Road, president of the Concord Housing Foundation. The reasons to pass Junction Village have been articulated before. The reasons not to support it are very unclear to me. because there is a long history of support here. Now, I do understand that some members of the select board may be concerned about the finances. Well, number one, that's why we have a CHDC with the ability to ask those questions. But number two, if we go ahead with this project and you submit the letter we need, the state has many millions more at stake than we do and many competing projects. If they think there's water in those estimates, they're either not going to buy them or they're going to push them back. And I think that's unlikely because of the history here. We know what happened to the middle school in 1 year, 15%, right? So the increases are there. Your concern is natural. There's a way to deal with that by looking to the state to double check those figures. But please write that letter and don't turn back 10 years of affordable housing history in this town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in person before I call on the people on Zoom? All right, seeing none, we will go to Peggy Briggs on Zoom. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people with their hands up. If there are more, please turn on your hands up. Go ahead, Peggy.
Thank you. Peggy Briggs. I'm the chair of the Concord Finance Committee and speaking on behalf of the Finance Committee. We met last week on October 13th. We had the October 7th letter in possession and discussed it on that basis. We convened that section of our meeting at 9:30, and I hope some of you were still present. The sense of the FinCom, based on the letter and our knowledge at that time, was that no more funds should be appropriated to this particular developer. We are extremely supportive of affordable housing, and in particular on this site where it is owned by the CHDC. It was transferred to the town for the purpose, and we believe that if the town and CHDC move quickly to, they could easily attract a private friendly 40B developer and still achieve the affordable housing goals of the town, which would obviously fall under the latest requirements that Alice and Stephen and others have focused on in terms of environmental benefits. So at this time, and with the information that we had available, we recommend not funding this developer and moving forward quickly to attract additional 40B friendly development of affordable housing at that location.
Thank you very much, Peggy.
Sure.
Next, we have Diane Proctor. Diane, are you with us? Okay. Diane, you're on mute.
Sorry. Hi, Diane Proctor, 57 Sudbury Road, Concord, Massachusetts. I speak to you tonight as the chair of the CPC, someone who has followed affordable housing for a very long time. And I don't want to reiterate the many very thoughtful and appropriate and important comments that Mike Lawson, Alice, and others have made tonight, because these are important commentary. Most of all, I would like us not to look at the concerns about 40B. I would like us to consider how important it is to provide affordable housing for the elderly in our community. For so many, this is an urgent and pressing concern. Some have said that, oh, well, we can just attract others and they will come and build. Well, that's really not true. The CPC has discovered that it takes a very long time for affordable housing to be to be first cited, then approved, then developed. It takes a very long time. These are not simple and easy issues. I think that although a quarter of our mandate is to approve for affordable housing, this is not this. It's still, even when we've done so. Look at the Commonwealth Avenue project. We approved that 4 years ago, and it is still being developed. In fact, it's on your agenda tonight, the Habitat for Humanity. So Peggy Briggs, I respect so much what you just said, and you're such a remarkable woman. But I have to say that I'm not sure that these things can happen as quickly and as swiftly as you imagine. So we can talk about 40B, or we can talk about the importance of affordable housing in our community, about our soul as a town, about our commitment to those who have less money than some and who need this kind of support. I hope with all my heart that the select board will embrace this issue, move forward, write a letter, and persuade Grantham to come back into the fold. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next, we will go to Tanya Galis.
Hi, Tanya Galis, 62 Prescott Road. Thank you. I just have one comment about the sewer aspect of this. If it moves forward, is it possible to make sure that the developer takes care of the sewer needs through a septic tank or whatever was planned originally, rather than burdening the town's sewer system and water resources? That would make a difference for me. Thank you.
Carrie, do you want to answer that?
So what I would say in response to that is this particular property is outside of our sewer service area, so it does not have access to municipal sewer as a matter of right. And we are working under the assumption that an on-site sewage treatment would be required, that it might not, it wouldn't come through a septic because of the flow that is calculated for that particular project. So it would need to be an on-site wastewater treatment, a small package plant. That is our working assumption at this point in time.
Right, and that is one of the main reasons for the $1 million shortfall that the developer was asking for.
Right.
Because I'm concerned that might be, in that case, a next step. Okay.
Next,
Thank you.
we have Linda, can't really read the name.
Nyman?
Nyman. If that,
Hi, Linda Neiman, 59 Mallard Drive. I'm one of the co-coordinators of Mothers Out Front Concord, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Concord leadership team. We submitted a letter in support of Junction Village that also did not make it into the packet, and I apologize for that. So I thought I would quickly read our letter. Concord has a need for affordable housing that allows our eldest residents to remain in town near their families. While the proposed project may not be perfect, it meets the immediate and pressing needs of the community right now. And high-density housing, as everyone has stated so eloquently, is a key stepping stone toward achieving the town's mandated climate goals. And we are running out of time, so we can't really kick this down the road and wait for another developer to come and take their place. Concord must reduce its greenhouse gas levels by 80% by 2015, as outlined by the Concord Energy Goals, Article 51 from 2017 that passed near unanimously by the town. This requires tackling the greatest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the town, which is the built environment. To ensure that we achieve this goal, residents voted to approve a bylaw amendment for the that requires new construction and major renovations to be fossil fuel free, and at the same time requested home rule authority to implement it. Both articles were overwhelmingly approved by Concord residents, underscoring that residents want bold action. Approval of this project by the select board will allow Concord to move forward with this application to participate in this home rule petition pilot program. The program requires a participating participating community to have at least 10% affordable housing, as we heard earlier. And Concord barely meets this goal now, which is, and we will definitely fall below it if Junction Village is not implemented. Construction costs have increased significantly owing to supply disruptions. While this additional cost is unfortunate, Concord has the means to make up this difference. And I believe that the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust has put forth $1 million toward this. Junction Village is an opportunity to marry our dual commitments to the environment and affordable housing, providing a safe, livable home for our oldest residents, while also working toward a livable climate for our youngest residents. We urge the Select Board to provide a letter of support for Junction Village. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll go to Pamela Dritt.
Pamela Dritt, 13 Concord Green, Unit 4. I think many of you have heard me criticize Christopher Heights, but I have been told many times, and I have to agree, in this case particularly, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We need this. We cannot wait. We will lose two desperately important things. I urge the Select Board to write a letter strongly urging the developer to come back and do this. There is no financial or environmental or social thing to be gained by not doing this. We desperately need it. It will enable two things to happen. So please do that.
Thank you. I think I see Julie McClure. Is your hand up, or is that?
No,
that's a different reaction. Okay. Trying to see on this teeny weeny screen here. Okay. Is there anybody else on? Tanya, you've already spoken. Do you have something very, very quick as a follow-up?
I will do, after Carrie's comments about the sewer situation, I would ask that if you do invite the developer back, that you request, however, that he does not make any additional requests about changing the sewer requirements. I'm just afraid that that might be a next request next year or whenever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else on Zoom? And what about in person? Is there anybody else who wishes to comment? All right, are there any comments from the Select Board? We'll move on. Okay,
Well,
Linda?
I think we've heard some strong endorsement from the public for the Select Board to be open to the comments that have been made tonight and to consider multiple town goals that we have espoused as a Select Board and as a town. Not only the two that have been highlighted this evening in terms of our environmental goals and our affordable housing goals, but we have also talked about being a welcoming community and considering equity in the decisions that we make, and we have also talked about a range of affordable housing options, not only affordable housing with a capital A, but a range of affordable housing options that also deals with moderate income individuals in town. And a lot of work has been done by the planning board for zoning, and the town has approved that, both for accessory dwelling units, for duplex units, and we have seen some movement in that direction. The planning board at a larger scale, in terms of outside of even moderate housing, has supported, and we have seen cluster housing in town that has green objectives, but has also provided inclusionary housing with some units that we'll hear about later this evening. So I think, as someone has already pointed out, this has taken many, many years to work on this. And some of us have been involved in that process from the beginning, following all these meetings. I did go visit one of the Grantham entities, as did other people in town in Marlborough, and were duly impressed with the services that were provided. Some of us recently had the opportunity in town for a conference call with DHCD, some of their highest placed people who make decisions about these grant applications. They explained to us the situation that the entire state has been in for 34 previously approved projects that were all asked and pulled back to resubmit for a special high ARPA, I'm not going to remember the exact at this moment, but ARPA round for the state, and also applauded the work of the Grantham group for all that the work, because they had worked with them at least on 4 or 5 other locations in town and found them to be extremely highly qualified partners. So it does take a long time for these projects to happen. The planning board and our town staff have to consider multiple strategies based on what we have said in our Envision Concord plan and our housing production plan about how they are going to take advantage of the opportunities as they present themselves to implement a whole range of strategies that hopefully move us to meeting our affordable housing goals, but more importantly, meeting the housing needs of all of our citizens by considering this range of housing opportunities. This particular project is just one very important key piece in that wide arena of strategy that has to be considered. So I remember a former select board member who happens to be in the audience tonight, who said that one of the most important responsibilities of select board members was to be open to the comments that we hear and new information that is brought to us. So I hope that we're in a position to do that tonight as a select board.
Okay. Other comments? Henry?
I take very seriously the letter that we got from the developer. It was a very straightforward, forthright letter that we received, I think, the day after we last talked about the project. And it was, if it wasn't the day after, it was within a day or two. And it was a very positive letter in terms of wanting to withdraw from the project. And so I have given some thought as to why the developer was so quick and so certain about responding to the hard questions that had been asked at our meeting. And I have to speculate, and it is only speculation, that in fact, the economics of that project no longer worked for that developer, and they were looking for a pretext to withdraw from it based on the questions that we had asked. And what they were asking for was not just a letter of support. They were asking for an additional $1 million from the town. And we've heard from the Finance Committee on that issue. And I think we also had real concerns about the integrity of the process, where there were commitments that were made. And even though circumstances changed, the commitments were the basis for our approving the project in the first place. I think it's also a mistake to tie this to the environmental issues. I know it was the intention of the legislature to try and use whatever leverage they could exert to get communities to build more affordable housing. And I will note as Linda noted, that the state only counts affordable housing not based on whether it is affordable, but on whether it is subsidized. And it is certainly possible to have affordable housing without having subsidized housing, and they are not the same thing. But I think it's a mistake to tie the two together for another reason, and that is that I guess there's always a possibility that the state might make regulations that are unanticipated. But town council was quite clear that the statute that was passed gave a threshold date of December of 2021. And regulations really cannot contradict what has been dictated by the statute that authorizes them. But there's another thing to think about, and I guess this is just a kind of a strange inspiration that came to me while I was listening this evening, and that is climate change is a worldwide issue. It is not a local issue. And are we really hurting the environment by having the state give the pilot project to another town? It's the same climate, it's the same fossil fuel, and it doesn't matter who doesn't use it and who doesn't burn it. It's the same impact on the environment. It would be nice if we could be the one, but we get the same result, and it might even be a better result if it went to a larger community that burned more fossil fuel. So this is not the end of the world.
Okay. Thank you. Mary, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'll make a comment. I feel right now like I'm having an argument in my head between my principled side and my pragmatic side. This is not a bad project, and we've heard many people say the pragmatic reasons for moving ahead, but I can't shake this feeling of distrust that I have towards this project. And part of that comes from the fact that I think we haven't had a lot of transparency around some of the things that have happened over the years. And I've been watching this for years. I know I'm new to the select board, but I have been watching this project for years, very, very closely. And we're like, just as an example of an issue I have with transparency would be, the reason that we need the $1 million is partly because of inflation, but it's also mainly because of a sewage problem. And in 2020, we knew, or we should have known, that we didn't have enough money for sewage. And yet at that town meeting, we voted a TIF agreement based on a condition that the developer would not need any direct or indirect funds. But we knew we didn't have enough money in the financials for sewage, or we should have known that.
Actually, in 2017, that was also true.
Okay, I only looked at the financials from 2020. So that's just one example where I don't see the transparency that I would like to see. And I think that's really on us, that we should be in a partnership with each other when it comes to these projects. So I do have a lingering feeling of distrust. I'm worried that if we were to not accept this developer's letter, there might be requests for more money. Remember, we've got a building here that's an assisted living building for seniors that has no air conditioning. That may be a health or safety issue down the road that we might have to help. So I'm struggling between my principled and my pragmatic side.
Okay. Any further comments from board members? Linda?
I don't see others stepping up to correct this fact, so I will. My understanding is that there will be air conditioning in the common areas, and that if individual residents requested it, they would also get it at the developer's expense.
Really? I thought it was going to be window units.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that from the developer.
Can Liz Russ?
Yeah, sure, Liz.
Does that change your principles?
Hi, I'm Liz Rust, 201 Commonwealth Avenue, Director of the Regional Housing Services Office. A minor point, but Linda's correct. There's air conditioning, central air in all the common areas, and any resident that wants air conditioning, a window unit in their particular unit is given one at the developer's expense.
Huh. I stand corrected.
Okay.
One quick comment, Terry. I think that Mr. Grantham, and I speak as if I know.
I guess you need to come up to the microphone.
Again.
And then we'll take one final comment from, after Moira, from the woman in the front row there, and then we will move on.
Why don't we give her a seat in the front in case she wants to speak again?
Why don't you give me a second? We need a superintendent of seniors. I see it, the angst in your eyes, in all of your eyes. But the reason I believe, and this is my personal feeling, Mr. Grantham wrote that letter, is because his lawyer probably told him to after that last meeting. I don't think that I think we have to be a little bit more clear and clear. A lot of clarity around our communication. Little details like that matter, because projects die in the details. And this project, from what I'm sensing, is about to die because of details. And I really, really implore you to go with, as some woman nicely said, you're the soul of Concord. You've heard a lot of people who've worked very hard on this project. And I do not think, yes, fossil fuels is important to the people of Concord. That is an important thing to us. And we don't dismiss things like that. That's who we are. And so are seniors. And Mr. Grantham was actually, someone attempted to sue him at this last meeting. So for him to write a letter withdrawing was of no surprise to me. That's all I have to say.
Okay, we'll have one final comment. If you'd like to come up, please give your name and address.
Sarah Wilbur, 95, no, that's my old house. 1860 Concord Green, 7. I obviously am a senior, and I really speak for the, whatever we are, 2,000 or something here, who are not, we're going to be around another 10 years while you dream up, start some new place and start with a new company and work all through this process another 10 years or another 5 years. There's such a desperate need right now for people in this town who cannot afford all the expensive housing that there is available for other people at different ages. And they really want to continue to live here. There are people whose children have lived here themselves, they grew up here, and it just is very sad to me that you're going to throw the whole thing away, which it certainly sounds like you plan to do, because there are problems. There are always problems with building. We all know that. There are always going to be difficulties, and to say, well, this ain't work, and that can't work, and that can't work, then you think the new place is going to be able to do it easily and have and then where would that be? It's got to be in that land. What other land is there that's available for us? I think we're just talking. My husband, Elliot Wilbur, worked on housing for 25 years here and was a selectman himself. And I think he would be very, very disappointed in Concord if we didn't go ahead and support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Lee Smith, I'll give you the last word. Then we need to move on, because we're way over time here.
Thank you, Lee Smith, 1836 Main Street. I'm the chair of the Concord Housing Development Corporation, or CHDC, the owner of the land in question. I want to thank everyone for their comments this evening. Very articulate, very on point. I agree with pretty much every one of them. If it's not been entirely clear, this is a huge missed opportunity if this does not move forward. Over 10 years of work, thousands of hours of volunteer time, staff time. This is a huge loss if this project goes away over minutia. Okay, if someone wants to debate what the pandemic has done to the economy or the construction industry, let's have that debate. But that's what this is really about, okay? This issue with sewer versus septic is frankly nonsense, okay? It's the increase in costs for this whole project that have put us to where we are today. Last thing I want to say is I'd really like to see this board, someone make a motion and vote on this issue so that this board is on record for exactly what's going to happen and be the future of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on. I think Mina is with us, and we're going to go back to,
We got a request in front of you to write a
Well-
letter of support. for the-
all right, does anyone want to make a motion?
I think it's important that we do vote on this request. However, we haven't heard from Mina at this point, and after hearing from Mina, but I think before we leave and walk out of, away from this conversation, we need to go on record as a select board, given the amount of effort that's been put into this by the town over many years.
Okay, so let's hear from Mina about certain provisions and with the memo of understanding. Mina, we skipped over you earlier and you're with us now. Do you want to give the highlights of your memo?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. Sure, I know the memo has been in front of you and it's in the packet, so I won't go over every detail, and certainly the memo doesn't necessarily, certainly doesn't answer the question for you. The big upshot of the memo is that you remain free to say yes or no to any request for additional funding or any request for additional support. What we were asked to do was to explain what would be the process for the town to unwind its agreements with the Grantham Group if the board so determined, not assuming it would determine it, just to be clear. The relevant documents, as mentioned in the memo, are effectively the MOU, or excuse me, MOA, between the town, CHDC, and the developer. That is the key document that involves all three parties. There's also the TIF agreement that was referenced before, the tax increment finance agreement that was passed subsequent to a town meeting vote in 2020. And of course, there's the development agreement that's between CHDC and the developer. The town is not a party to that, but we explained some of the provisions in it because it does impact the town, and the town at the time had reviewed some of those agreements and had been involved in working with CHDC on that. So the key points here in the memorandum of agreement, the town committed through an appropriation $2 million, $1 million of that in CPA funds, another $1 million through the town's general funds. There is no explicit termination provision, but there's also been no trigger for paying those funds to date. 50% of the funds, I believe, go in at the time of the when all funding has been secured, other funding has been secured, and another 50% go in when certificates of occupancy have been issued for the project. Neither of those has happened yet. For the town to release that $2 million, the process is relatively straightforward. It would require simply changing the nature of the appropriation. My understanding, and speaking with the town manager, is that appropriation is booked as a project-based one, just like you would for other projects, and therefore you would need a town meeting vote to release the appropriation. That is, of course, if it's that would allow it to revert to the general fund for appropriation for other purposes. The TIF agreement, the other agreement that involves the town, has provisions for the town to essentially seek that the state decertify the project. But again, because the project has not yet far enough along, there actually are no tax incentives that have been provided to date. Had there been tax incentives, you could have recouped those, but there aren't. The last point, since I know it's come up, there was a question, I believe, about the nature of the two items in the agreement, that in one in the TIF and one in the MOA, about not asking for additional funding. This was brought up, from my recollection, as in the lead up to the 2020 town meeting and added to the TIF. It has perhaps political and policy weight for you all. However, as we've explained in the memo, it is, you can't stop someone from asking, but you can certainly point to something and say, we didn't expect you to ask. So there's no legal remedy there for them having asked, but other than to say no, that's a remedy. So that's really the long and short of it. We did look into where this places, just a couple of other reminders. This property is restricted for affordable housing or conservation. So at the moment, those are really the only two possible uses of it. The impact of where this would fall in the SHI, it's certainly where the town would fall in the SHI, because building permits haven't been issued. It would, if they have been issued, it would help you on the SHI, but it's not sort of counted for now. To answer a question that I know has come up a little bit, and with your indulgence, just to pause on it briefly with regards to the climate bill, Chapter 179 of the Acts of 2022. It is our view that the better reading of that legislation, based on its legislative history and the language in it, is that it is retroactive in terms of when the 10% is measured. It's December 2020, at which point the town was considered to be above 10%, regardless of whether or not it will be in the future, and regardless of whether or not it might be lower in the future based on 2020 numbers that were not known at the time. However, as I believe Ms. Kaufman mentioned, DOER regulations have yet to come out. And so there is always a possibility, although I don't think it would be consistent with the current understanding of the statute, that it would change to exclude towns that have since fallen under the 10% threshold.
Okay, thank you. And do board members have questions from town council? Anybody have questions? Okay, thank you very much for answering our questions from last week on that.
You've got two hands up. I don't know if you want to.
Right, I think we're going to take the people on Zoom who have your hand up. I think we've had plenty of public comment. We're going to wait until the end of the meeting for additional public comment. So at this time, does any select board member wish to make any other statement or a motion or anything?
I'd like to make a motion
Okay,
that the select board indicate its willingness to submit a letter of support for the Grantham project to DHCD.
okay, is there a second? Okay, seeing none, I don't think we have a second, but we do thank everybody for coming out tonight and all of the very hard work that you have done on this project. Well, we don't have a second, so.
How about a motion to not send a letter?
No.
I think we're all set now. Thank you anyway. I understand people are very upset, and I understand the reasons. And I mean, we don't necessarily agree with every comment that was made. As for example, I personally don't think that COVID and the construction is my main objection to the project. I think the sewer is probably my main problem, since it's been an issue, just speaking for myself, since way back, when I asked that question on the Finance Committee, way back many years ago.
Would you kindly repeat the motion? It was difficult to hear back here. Thank you.
I move that the select board submit a letter of support to DHCD for the Christopher Heights Grantham project.
You can't hear back there? The motion was to, can you hear me okay? Okay.
Your voice is coming.
Okay, I don't have a mask on, so maybe the motion was for the select board to send a letter of support for the Grantham Junction Village project to the DHCD.
Please go on record.
We just did. We do not, we failed to get a second. We,
If somebody would second the motion,
That's right.
then there could be a vote. I think that would be highly appropriate.
all right, does anyone want to second the motion? Otherwise, I really think we're
I
gonna,
don't think it's, I don't,
I think we're gonna move on.
Carrie, I don't think it's for, I think it's our function to decide
I agree.
what position we're going to take and whether or not we're going to take a position. And I understand that people might want to put us on the spot, but we don't have to be on the spot if we don't think it's appropriate.
And if you are going to listen to the public, you should take our comments too.
Yes.
Tanya, thank you. We have heard from you twice already, and we will hear from you again at the end. Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, which is update from Liz Rust on the affordable housing projections.
Situation where we've got to start here and have been in that land.
Hi.
Thank you for being here tonight and for your memo, Liz.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to be continuing our meeting. Thank you all very much.
And so you had the courage to come speak publicly. It's not easy to speak to people publicly.
Okay, Liz, thank you for being here.
Sure. Hi, I'm Liz Rust. I'm 201 Commonwealth Avenue, Director of the Regional Housing Services Office. And I'm here to give you an update on the subsidized housing inventory and the projections and pipeline. We've had a lot of discussion about that through the comments just in this previous discussion, but this puts it into just a town-wide look versus that particular project. There's a memo in the packet, and I'll just briefly summarize, and then you can ask any questions that you might have. So the subsidized housing inventory is known as the SHI, and I sort of start in the memo to describe what that process is, but I think we're down that path, and everyone, I see a lot of nodding of heads, so we don't have to really spend too much time over there. But it does, if you're above the 10%, you do have greater control over what projects that you approve or don't approve. So the 10% is a fraction, right? And the numerator is the number of units that are regulated through the state programs. I think that Mr. Dane called them subsidized. Another word for that is regulated. And those continue to add and subtract as the units are available. And the denominator is that comes from the census. Due to the delays with the federal census, it's still operating under the 2010 census numbers, and that will change to 2020 census no earlier than May of next year. So we're in this time of, you know, it's going to be 2023, but before the census data is published, which is it's kind of crazy in and of itself, right? So the current SHI number is, Concord is 10.43%. So DHCD publishes that, and it's measured at a, you know, 100th of a percentage, and which is 29 units above the 10%. There are 715 regulated units on the SHI. And of that number, there's almost half of them are market rate units because of the way they count the units on the SHI. So DHCD wants to encourage large rental projects, so they give you credit for counting those. So there are 358 market rate units on the SHI.
Quick question on that, Liz.
Of course.
In your memo, it says there are 358 units, reducing it to 5.21% if removed. That confused me.
Right. So, I mean, sometimes you look at like, you know, some communities that we work with say, well, if you didn't have the market rate units on the SHI, what would our true restricted affordable number be? So instead of being above 10%, it would be 5.21%.
But
So like, for instance,
Right,
like, we're
okay.
going to be talking about the local initiative thing, and when you do, you have a certain number as affordable,
Right.
but the total development has many
Right.
more units,
Right,
they
I get it.
all get counted.
Right.
But-
My question is, when you said if removed, there's no proposal of anybody to
there is.
remove
Well,
them,
some
right?
people are talking about that, but no, there's nothing really
Okay,
there. Right,
okay.
Right, right.
Thank you.
If not counted, might have been another
Okay,
thing that not
okay.
removed, yeah.
Great.
But
Um,
then it also doesn't count the ones that are affordable
know.
but are not subsidized. So,
Right.
I don't know what that means. Like, so we
Well-
call capital A when homes are just lower priced?
yes,
Yes.
right.
Not that many in this town, I don't think, really, but yes, that's true. The 2020 SHI, and I just say that, we're just having done all of the, I'll put a little plug in for the housing production plan. I think that Kerry talked about that. We are just drafting the goals and strategies in the document is starting its review process, and through Marcia, working with how to present here to the board and get your input on that.
Can you tell me the advantages of having this housing production plan?
Yes, let me just get to that in a little bit. I'm just 2 paragraphs away. So the 2020 census, so when those numbers first become available, it will change the denominator. And if your numerator is still the same, it just will have the effect of reducing your percentage. And it's likely that Concord will fall below the 10%. I think we heard that over the last hour. The shortfall could be as low as eight units. And we don't really know exactly what the number would be because some of the information is only available in the census and we don't have access to that information now. So the SHI has remained at its approximate current level since 2013. So I wanted to mention that there's units that are from Department of the Children and Families or Department of Developmental Services, both that are recorded on the subsidized housing inventory. They're kind of like group homes, and beds in group homes come in from those agencies and you get credit from them on the SHI, though the town doesn't have any control over them, doesn't permit them as such. The addresses are confidential, so you don't even know where they are.
Can you tell us more about that? Because it seems like a kind of a very low intensity way to actually improve the numbers.
So, so these are beds in group homes. So they might have a group home provider, like maybe it's Minuteman Arc, or maybe it's Advocates or something. And they might, have a private home that they've purchased and that they use as residential quarters for their clients. And those clients are eligible and subsidized through the DSS, and through that they come into the SHI directly from DSS to DHCD, not through the town. The town does not add them to the subsidized housing inventory, nor does the town restrict those properties with any affordable housing
But
restriction.
would something like the Walden Street School count on this?
No, that doesn't count. I don't know.
But that is a lot of the students there are financed by the state.
Well, let me just say this. There are 23 units from DSS on Concord's SHI. Where those are, those addresses are confidential. So maybe it is those units. Maybe there's some other ones elsewhere in town. As I say, the addresses are confidential. That particular count has decreased over time and has most notably decreased by 9 units over just this year. So Concord added 19 units over, since, in the last decade, but 11 were lost in this, in these group homes. So it's hard to make a lot of progress, right? Like you don't have any control over that. And every time you pull your SHI report, there's the number. It might be less, it's, used to be more. And we see this in communities that have high property taxes, high property rates, values. Lexington is losing a lot of theirs, for example. And so it's just another element to the SHI.
And just going back for a minute.
Yep.
It says the census has published the housing units in Concord is 7,295, but that's 500 units less than the building permit data from the census. Can you explain that?
Sure. So the census obtains or calculates housing units kind of from the ground up. So they start at 0 every time, and then they get like all the addresses from the post office, and they use maps to find all the homes, and that's how they count them. And then separately, we have building permit data, and every month the building department, through the building survey, sends their data, and it makes its way to the census. And as we've gone through the decade, we've worked with the building department to estimate what the 2020 census would be. And they had 500 building permits, or 500 more than the housing units. So we don't
That
really.
sounds like a huge discrepancy.
So that's why we don't really know the
Wow.
source of that discrepancy. So I just put that in there because we had that discrepancy, so we don't really know. So it makes us still kind of wonder about all this.
But a building permit might be issued like just to put on a new roof,
These would be building permits for new units.
new,
New units. The only thing that could impact here is 500 new units that replaced 500 existing units, the tear down phenomenon. But that still is a lot of tear downs.
That's a lot. It sounds
Yeah.
like it could make the difference between being under or over the 10%.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Is there a way to reconcile those two numbers eventually?
Once the census data is published, we can see the that information by census tract, and we can drill down. But when it's
Okay.
not published, we don't really have access to that
Okay, but we
information
will
yet.
be able to figure
We
it
will,
out.
yeah.
Okay.
So the other element here is the housing production plan that Mary brought up. And so having an approved housing production plan, which that's what we're working towards, we prepare the plan and then we have it approved by DHCD, can also provide a safe harbor. So when you have an approved plan, then you create your units and that would certify your plan. If you have a certified plan, you can use that for a safe harbor.
when you say create, you mean build?
Create units would be add them to the SHI. So sometimes, different projects become eligible for the SHI in different times, but they'd have to create SHI units.
But how do you get created? Do you just have a plan? Do you have to get a building permit?
Permit or build.
So you have to build them.
Or if it's a 40B, you can do it at permit.
Okay, but if
But
it
you have
isn't
to issue the
40B,
40B permit.
if it's a 40B, it's, you get a building permit,
No, you could get the 40B zoning permit.
right? And that would count once
That
you
would
get the
add them,
permit.
and then if you don't get the building permit a year later, they would come off. Right, that's the,
Okay.
Okay.
right. And so for Concord, that's 35 units in a year. So it's almost enough to just put you over the 10%. So I don't know that it's an effective strategy.
Yeah.
So you would have your plan, you would create 35 units on your SHI through whatever means, and then you would have safe harbor through your housing production plan, but you probably would have safe harbor through your 10%, which is a more lasting safe harbor.
Yeah.
Because the housing production plan, safe harbor is a 1-year safe harbor. Okay, does that help?
Yeah, yeah, thanks.
So in terms of, that was really all the background on the SHI. So just in looking at the pipeline.
Yeah.
So for this, and so I did this by fiscal years, right? This year and next year. So no new units this year. The 2 units at Main Street for Habitat were just added last month. So those are all set. And so there's nothing new in this fiscal year.
Those are beautiful, by the way.
Yeah.
They are.
Wait a minute, they were added last month, so isn't that in this fiscal year?
Well, I'm just saying the pipeline go forward. So that's
Okay.
already in the 715
Okay.
affordable units. They're already in
Got
there.
it.
In FY '24, so next year we have the 2 LIP applications that we'll talk about directly after this. One at Mill Run and one at, I call it Giroux, but it's really Commonwealth Avenue. It's probably a better name.
And why would they not, if we approve those tonight, why would they not be counted in this fiscal? Couldn't they get building permits this year?
So this fiscal year, probably not. They would have to, these 2 units would have to close. Like actually, the buyers actually close and purchase the units. So the deed restriction be placed on them. So it's not a building permit. Since they weren't created through a comprehensive 40B permit, they were created through inclusionary PRD permits. They have different counting timeline rules. And these particular counting rules are when the buyers actually close and the deed restriction is on record,
Wow.
restricting that property.
But you can put the restriction on before they're built.
You can put the affordable housing restriction through the regulatory agreement, but that's
Yes.
not sufficient to add them to the SHI for these particular units.
Okay.
For the owners, these are ownership units, and they need to get the ownership deed restriction recorded. And so you'll hear tonight about the LIP application, right? So you approve it, then it goes to DHCD for their approval, and then the marketing starts, and that's a 2-month marketing, and then the lottery happens, and then the buyer and the purchase and sale and the closing. So all of that's a good 8-month process. Something like that. You know, maybe it's a little closer, but. So then in the 3 to 5 year timeframe, there's the 5 units at Assabet River Bluff. So these are in planning now. Some, like 2 of the units, might come earlier, but that would be on the outside for the new construction units. And again, that's, you know, it's like, as I say, 3 to 5 years.
Can you walk us through the timeline of what needs to happen? That seems like a long time to me. Were
Right,
those
so just to talk about it a little, because it's come up tonight about like the timeline, how long these things take.
Yeah.
So the project at 930 Main Street, that project took 3 years to get on the SHI, and that was a very simple project of buying a house, having Habitat do their build, and then selling to 2 people, right? There was no public financing, there wasn't any town meeting, there wasn't any of that, and that was a 3-year project. So here, where we have new construction that will require town meeting, I'm sure, for the construction funds for Assabet River Bluff, that's going to elongate that process. Because all the units need to be affordable, and that's the same thing with the Junction Village property, all units are affordable so that there's no market rate units to help subsidize the affordable ones. The subsidy is much greater and requires more.
But now we have $2 million.
And maybe you'll offer it to this project. I don't know. So there's 2 parts of the project. There's the 2 units on, you know, in the existing building. So renovate and work on those. One of them is occupied by a renter now. And then there's the new construction in the back, and the CHDC is working on that. And they're making some progress there.
So some of it is financing and some of it is permitting. Is that?
That's all correct, yes.
Okay.
And then first is design and an RFP. So design, public review, goals for the project, RFP, select the developer. The CHDC's volunteer board, they're not going to actually do the development. So they're going to put it out for a developer.
Yep.
Get the construction numbers, obtain financing. That might take a year, and then go forward. A little bit further out are some number 9 possible units. This is from the Concord Housing Authority. This is their their thoughts about projects or units that could be done with, some sewer expansion for these particular properties. And I suppose in this 5 to 10 years or somewhere in here, we would put back in the Junction Village property, if that's really up for reconsideration now, something like that. That would be in that 5 to 10 year period. And that process would be similar to Assabet River Bluff. Vision for the property, goals for that, go out for an RFP, select a developer, get financing, go forward, right?
But,
It's the
but you
same
could put a
process.
lot of family housing on 12 acres.
We can go back and look at that, yeah,
Yeah.
of course, and that was what was proposed and really shot down very, very strongly by the select board and all the boards that were presented, the
Well,
family
we-
housing. So, but that was some time ago, things have changed, and maybe people have
Yeah,
different
as the
thoughts.
man said, things change.
Things change.
Sometimes for the,
It's a
sometimes for
small
the better.
road. Yeah, it's a small road. There was a lot of concerns about the traffic going in that road and over the Bruce Freeman Rail. But that was then. This is now, right? There are 2 housing authority properties that could be added to the SHI inventory as soon as that they're vacant. They're not on the inventory now, so those could get on. And then longer term, there's that, 222, 2229 Main Street, the Star Met site, and then the school. And then I'll just finish this and then I'll just open up, right? So the, looking forward, there's some properties with expiring restrictions, which will be removed presumably, if not extended or preserved. There's a community housing options. There's 20 units expiring in 2037. And Fairhaven Gardens has 42 units expiring in 2043. And Emerson Annex has 4 units expiring at various times between 2028 and 2035. And then there is the existing 23 DSS units that may continue to decrease.
I have a few questions. When you say something's expiring, does that mean that what can we do to keep that on the SHI, if anything?
Well, the property owner often has the ability to, go to market.
Mhm.
So they need to be compensated
Got
to
it.
make that worth their while to keep the restriction on the property.
Great. And then these units that you have in the 5 to 10 year category, these are new?
These would be additional units on existing properties.
And do these existing properties already have sewage? Why is sewage a problem?
No, they don't.
They don't.
Some of them, no, yeah. And so each one's a little bit different, like the ones on Bedford Street.
Yep.
There's like, getting the sewer like in back, like there's a sewer, I think, in the front unit and then getting back to the other. So there's some analysis that needs to be done there.
Okay. And then I've got one last question. There's a house on Harrington Ave, a big white house that I think used to be part of the SHI. It's on Harrington Ave. Do you know which house I'm talking about? No. Marcia might. And I'm just wondering why that came off of why it's vacant now. I think that house was in the
The
SHI.
farmer,
The Wheeler Harrington House?
Yes, yeah. Is there
It
a
was
reason
never,
why-
it was never on the SHI. It was leased to a couple that maintained it as a historic structure. We then, when they moved out, we leased it again, but things didn't work out. And so now it's vacant. We'll be doing a charrette to decide how best to address that property in the future.
So, but it possibly could become an affordable unit. Is that correct?
It's an antique structure. It would be extraordinarily difficult to renovate it to be suitable as a subsidized housing. And I don't know that it would be worthwhile to do that. We'd have to sort of value engineer what that would look like.
Okay. Well, thank you for this really good summary. I think this answers a lot of questions. Are there other questions for Liz on this SHI update? Linda?
Liz, I think you did a good job of answering Mary's question about, why does it take so long and what are some of the component parts? The one thing I didn't hear, but maybe I think you implied, was the going out to abutters or getting public feedback on the project, which then adds a whole nother dimension in terms of time.
I think I implied that in the design stage
You-
before going
you
out to
did.
the RFP. Yes, to the town goals.
I just wanted to be explicit about it.
Thank you. All the projects require that.
Yeah, it's good to have this really very clear factual information. And it helps us also to understand what all the obstacles are in terms of creating subsidized housing, because all of the process that goes on that is necessary, at least under the current arrangements, for public construction, the cost of public construction, the qualified bidders, the sub bids, the designer selection, and the standards to which it has to be built, which in many cases is equal to or better than those standards that apply to non-subsidized housing under the building code. So it's a challenge, isn't it?
Yep. So I think that you're referring to public construction laws and procurement, and most of these projects aren't subject to that. But those are certainly required. But the Housing Authority is subject to public construction, but the CHDC is not. The Junction Village project was not subject to that, and the private developers certainly aren't. But the public review and design standards are important.
Okay, so we are running way over time.
I'm just going to go. I can go really quick on these next two. I'm sorry, I
Right,
didn't
we're
mean
going to
to
move
interrupt.
on to the LIP applications, right?
Right.
Okay,
So there are two LIP applications in front of you. That stands for Local Initiative Program. Both of these projects were permitted through the inclusionary or PRD zoning, and so that they would be regulated through the Local Action Unit program under LIP. So LAUs under the LIP. So they're LIP LAUs, to use that jingo. So one is the Mill Run condominiums on Main Street, and the other is the Commonwealth Avenue by the Giroux. So the Mill Run condominiums, this project has been going on for 3 years, and this is a private developer. So just so that you, again, see how long these take. Like, this is very straightforward, but it's still been 3 years they were issued their permit, and they've been thinking about it for longer than that. There are 2 units proposed here for restrictions. One's an 80% unit and one's a 150% unit. They're both 1 bedrooms. They are both fossil fuel free. The 80% unit would be regulated under DHCD, and the moderate income unit is regulated under the Concord Moderate Income Program. This is the standard local initiative process where you sign the LIP application, it goes to DHCD, it comes back to you to sign the regulatory agreement that ratifies your support. And then these just confirm all the details that are contemplated in the permit. There's no surprises here. And then the process moves on from there.
Are these rental or home
These are
ownership?
both home ownership units. The second one is Commonwealth Avenue. It's a very tightly engineered home in that little sliver of land right there next to Giroux. They've done as much as they could in there. And it is the exact same process from LIP, as well as it has the habitat aspect to it of selecting the family that will do their sweat equity in building the home.
That was the one that was going to cost $700,000 to
Right.
build?
That's correct.
Is it still going to cost $700,000 to
No,
build?
I mean, Habitat, does all the labor volunteer. The town, through the CHA, is putting in, assisting with the sewer hookup and utility connections, but I think that's the only funds that are being.
So
okay.
I got a question. So Mill Run is one at 80% and one at 150%.
That's
is that-
correct.
And then the one what we're not calling Giroux anymore, is a 60%. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is the one at Mill Run that's 150, could the town buy that down to make it 80, or is it too late to do that?
It's awfully late to do that. But if the select board wanted to evaluate that, we could take that back. Would you ask the trust to put in that money? I mean, you can see the difference of money, so it's like $240,000. I don't know. They've all left, you know.
We could think about it.
Well, we're looking for your vote tonight on both of these applications.
Oh. I would think that would be a good idea.
This is the one that is, the one that's the Dan Gainsborough's project?
Yes.
That's correct.
Yep.
Yeah. He does a great job.
So you're saying it costs about 240,000 to get that from 150% down to 80% AMI?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the sales price differences. The 80% unit is 220,600. The other ones, yeah, so something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Sales prices, I see it. I'm going down to there.
I think I'd want to get a recommendation first from, DHCD or I don't know, planning board, or I'm not sure if we're ready to just make that recommendation tonight.
Did you mean CHCD?
CHCD wouldn't opine on that. This would be a town decision.
Right, but-
It's, I think it's in their permit this way, so that there'd be the planning board, I think
Right.
would be a good place to start and really, but the units are ready. All the market rate units have been sold and occupied.
There must
These-
be a reason why they didn't put both of them in for the 80% SHI.
The developer's not obligated to, so the developer was obligated to do 2 restricted units, but one had to be 80 and the other could be up to 150, and they'll, choose the 150.
It's 236,000. You're right, Liz. Yeah. Well,
The
does
developer
anybody-
team is finishing up on the site, and so we always like to get the buyers in there so that if there are things that need to be addressed. Now, Dan Gatesboro lives on site, so that's a little bit better, but sometimes the developers.
And the owners of these units then pay real estate taxes, is that correct?
They do, yes,
And it's based on the value.
based on the sales price, what they purchase it for, that's their value. It takes the restriction into account.
Yeah.
Are we ready for a motion on this?
Does anybody?
Do I have a motion here?
Yes.
Oh,
you should.
okay. Oh, I'm still awake. This is, we have 2 different motions. One
Right.
for
First we're
Mill
gonna-
Run. So I would like to move to approve the income deed restriction for 16 Mill Run and 18 Mill Run as further described in the Mill Run Local Initiative Project application as included in the board packet.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
Liz?
And I think to also vote to sign the LIP application. That's really, I think, what we're looking for, right? We're looking for your
And
signature.
and to sign the application, which goes to the
DHCD. Department of Housing and
Yes,
Community Development.
right.
Okay,
Second?
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Okay. Any questions on the habitat, Giroux? Or are we ready for a motion on that one?
Okay.
We're ready for motion.
Yeah, absolutely. So move to approve the income deed restriction for 365 Commonwealth Avenue, a Habitat for Humanity project as further described in the local initiative program application included in the board package, and to execute the agreement,
To sign the LIP application.
sign a LIP application for DHCD.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Liz.
It's nice to have somebody leave happy.
Well,
Well, at least we got 2 units this way, eventually. Okay, we are going to move on to review and vote special town meeting calendar. Everybody should have a copy of that calendar. We have Carmen with us.
Is that in the packet?
Yes, it's in the packet.
Okay, I'm scrolling down.
It's buried very deep, and it's only 2 pages, I think, so.
Right.
Okay,
It's page
It's on
163 of the packet.
thank you. That helps.
I don't.
Okay, well, it looks like this is the timetable that we discussed at previous meetings with all of these details filled in by staff and Carmen for our special town meeting on January 19th. I don't think we need to run through the whole thing. We would open the warrant tonight with a vote, and we would close it Friday, I guess, and then Monday, the 31st, we would vote the order of warrant articles. Do any board members have any questions about this calendar?
I do.
Linda?
Do we know if the date has been confirmed for the Finance Committee public hearing?
Do we still have Peggy with us?
We do. Peggy is here.
Or Carrie, perhaps you know? Peggy.
Hello, I'm still here. We went through this entire schedule at our last meeting, and we're fine with everything.
Thank you.
The answer is yes. It's we can do the FinCom hearing on November 17th.
Very good.
Very good. Okay, any other questions? All right, I think we're looking for a motion to
All right.
open the warrant and to another motion to approve this calendar.
Let's see. You ready?
Yep.
I move to open the special town meeting warrant.
For a meeting on February
So I,
19th.
let's see, I'm missing. Oh, what I have here is move to open the special town meeting warrant today, October 17th, 2022, and close the warrant on Friday, October 28th, 2022 at 12:30 PM, and adopt the special town meeting calendar for the special town meeting scheduled for January 19th, 2023.
Correct.
Did I get it right?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much. Thank you, Carmen. Okay, we are now going to move on to review and vote on 317 Garfield Road project in connection with the historic preservation restriction. Welcome. Please introduce yourselves.
Yes, my name is Elise Stone, and I'm the architect for the project. And these motions.
Hi, I'm Marisela Marrero. I'm the house owner.
I'm Michael Carucci, house owner.
Okay, so your current address is 309 Garfield Road?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
What? Garfield.
Garfield,
Yeah,
yes.
right, okay. Yes.
So I know we submitted a letter, kind of explaining the whole process, that I think you all probably received. I'm assuming we don't have to read it, or?
No, we
No,
have
do
that
we,
letter.
do we understand that what you want to do is build a separate building?
Yes.
A separate garage building?
Yes.
And that, as I read the, just to cut to the chase, under the restriction, it says that without the prior express written approval of the town, which approval may not be unreasonably withheld, conditioned, or delayed. And it says, later on, it says, garages, sheds, and outbuildings, nothing herein shall prevent the grantor from constructing garages, sheds, or other outbuildings on the premises, provided that any such garage, shed, or outbuilding does not impair the building's preservation values. So I don't even think you need our permission, do you?
So, yeah, so just a little bit of history. So we first went to the Historic Commission, and they passed us very, easily. They felt that the garage fit in with the house and, you know, kind of nestled into kind of the hill. There's really, this is really the only place on the site that we can fit this garage. We can't, we didn't want to put it close to the house because, and it's really, the house was actually a, kind of the gatehouse of the main. That's on the property. So it's kind of across an access road. And it was divided and they bought it. They bought this gatehouse, which is the house. So we didn't want any garage that would be near it that would kind of take away from the original massing and really beauty of that structure. So we felt like, and the Historic Commission agreed with that. They were very happy with all those things. So then our next stop was at the zoning board. And because of just really the setback situation, because there is this access road and how the existing house was non-conforming, it just was the way it was when this lot was created. So then we went to the zoning board really for a technical thing that I've done dozens of times. You know, kind of it's a non-conforming structure and we weren't making the conformity worse type of thing. And so at the zoning board, they felt that, and you know, the zoning board is made of lawyers. So they were looking at it legally and they felt that when they were saying that part that you mentioned, that, that the town approval was the select board. And I think there was a lot of back and forth discussion with Marcia, town manager, et cetera. So they felt that we should come before this board as the town. And so, I mean, if this board approves, we will then go back to the zoning board for the technical.
So you'd rather have us approve it than tell you that you don't need our approval, which is, okay, so I think, so
I have a question.
Sure.
How far is this proposed garage from the lot line?
So it's, this access road creates this divider between the two parts of this property. And I know we do have a site plan that Michael has it. We did, should be up there somewhere.
Yeah, it's in the packet, but it was a little bit difficult to figure out.
Oh, yeah. So from the road, it's actually, and so this is why we're going to the zoning board, because the existing house from the road is, do we have it there? No, this doesn't have the thing.
Yeah.
So this is so small, but maybe I'll stand up. It might be easier to show you.
Yeah.
So when they created this lot, you can kind of see it. You know, let me point up here.
Yeah,
That would be really good.
so this is the house.
Exactly.
That's the garage.
This is the house, right, and so the main house is over here. Okay, that was created, and this was the gatehouse. So then they divided the property, and then this is this new property line that goes around here. See it right here? And so this access road goes back here, and there are 3 other houses down this road at the end. And so obviously the access road is kind of universally owned, you know, it's not owned by either. So this house sits, so they kind of created this kind of right away, for want of a better word. So this sits 8 feet, and that was kind of created when they created this lot from this right of way. That's the existing house. So the way the garage is, so this is where the septic is. And this septic was put in for the house. Okay, so when this was just put in new. And so this is really the only place this garage could go because it had to be so far from the leaching field.
Okay. So what I'm trying to understand is where the roads are. So that road coming down the middle, that's the access road?
Yes, this is the access road right here.
Okay, and where's Garfield Road on this map?
Garfield Road is way out here.
Okay, and where is, I guess the Valley Road is near there. Is that?
Pretty far.
Oh,
It's actually-
okay.
Yeah, so you go
Right.
out here and there's.
All right.
I think you pass 3
Way
other
down there.
houses. And then you're out here at Garfield Road.
Okay.
And then Garfield Road goes up in the valley. right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. All right.
So it's pretty far. I mean,
Okay.
it's, and then this is the driveway to the main house. So the
So
main
the
house-
garage is really not near any other neighbors, is?
No.
Okay. That's what I was trying to figure out.
And that property was the source of the change in the bylaw that enabled people who had 5 acres to build a stable without getting the consent of a majority of their abutters. Because the previous owner had horses on that property and wanted to build a stable.
Yeah, there is a stable down there. And then the other part of the history of this, because this is very unusual, is that this house is very historic, but it's in very bad shape, the main house. And so the woman who owns it, she could sell it. Someone could sit on it for a year and demolish it. And the town made this, kind of allowed her to divide this, okay, and create the separate lot in exchange for that, putting this whole restriction on that they can't demolish the house ever. The house can't be demolished, and this also can't be demolished. So it was kind of, the town was very happy to do this because, I mean, I've been through the main house and, you know, it needs a lot of work. Like, it would be easy for it's beautiful land. It'd be easier for a developer to just say, I'm gonna sit on it for a year, demolition delay. It's gonna come down and then I can build whatever I want. So this way the town preserves this historic house.
Okay.
So that's kind of the history behind it.
I move to approve the 317 Garfield Road project in connection with its historic preservation restrictions as included in the board packet.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very
so
much.
much.
Thank you for
Oh,
preserving
wait a
that.
minute, so now we have 2 people who came to
And
us
left
tonight.
happy?
who are
boy.
Even happy.
Let me see, so that's 25 to 2.
Yeah,
okay.
25.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are moving on to White Pond. I was not here last meeting, but I did watch the tape and the board seemed to have an excellent discussion on it. I've reviewed the amended charge. I think, Mary, you did a really excellent job drafting it.
Thank you.
I would like to move to approve the revised White Pond Task Force charge as included in the board packet.
Second for discussion. I just want to make sure, does anyone have questions or any other revisions?
I think we discussed it last time.
You did.
Well, but there's just 2 changes that I
Okay.
added based on input from Marcia Rasmussen, and they're in yellow. So that's the only, well, I incorporated the changes I heard at our meeting, and then after that, I got 2 more changes from Marcia that I
My motion
added.
was based on the
It was.
version that's in the packet.
With the changes we discussed. So this is different from what we approved by those changes in yellow, and they're. if you want-
Okay, so you've added solicit input from boards and committees that have responsibility for town-owned land and resources and how it fits within the scope of other town projects. Okay.
So-
See that, Henry, on the highlighted part?
I do. I'm still in favor.
Me too.
So I just have a, Mary, you did do a wonderful job on this. I'm just wondering if you want to reorder those 2 in yellow, because I'm wondering if understanding how the town is thinking about it shapes some of the input from the other boards and committees. That would just be my suggestion. It's a, when.
I don't have a problem with that.
So you're saying first put consult with town staff and then after solicit input from boards?
Yeah, just swap them,
Yeah, I
the
don't.
order of those,
yeah,
that's all. You can stay in the same place, but just swap the order.
I don't have a problem with that.
It's okay.
Otherwise, I think it's great.
As-
The suspension is a separate
Motion.
motion, okay, good.
I think. Henry, are you making a separate motion to suspend the White Pond Advisory Task Force? No. the White Pond Advisory-
Do I have, I only
Now,
do.
let's do one thing at a time.
Okay, let's do one thing at a time.
So let's have that motion again, Henry, about this.
I move to, we already did that one. Move to approve the revised White Pond Task Force charge as included in the board packet and as amended by the changes that were just stated.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Do you have what they are?
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
The ones in yellow.
Right, just
They're,
swapping.
they're swapped.
Right, great.
Okay.
Okay,
Now,
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and do we want to discuss suspending the White Pond Advisory Committee? Um, in, what is the point? They would be suspended until this task force recommends what
Based
to
on the
do?
recommendations of this task force.
Okay,
So yes.
all right, and what do people think about that?
well, do you mean that the committee itself would be suspended? Or
That's the proposal.
well, it mentions in this motion, it says suspend their charge.
Yeah, I don't think that's quite right. I think suspend the activities of the committee
Yes.
Are we,
until,
like putting them on furlough or?
right.
Yes.
I guess we're anticipating that this task force might
That their activities.
recommend a different charge for the White Pond
No,
Committee.
it's
going
that their
forward.
activities would be suspended pending the recommendations of this task force.
Yes.
Correct.
So can we move that?
Question about that. Have you spoken with the current White Pond Advisory Committee about that?
Yes.
And what do they think about suspending?
Some of the people were unhappy with that idea and decided to join the Friends of White Pond,
Okay,
which is basically a homeowners association.
right.
And other people agreed to move over to the task force, and other people's, actually their time on the committee had expired anyway. Their time
Okay.
on the White Pond
So
Advisory
it's
Committee.
mixed. a
Yeah, it's mixed.
reaction.
That's
So
a
is
fair-
there any reason not to disband the committee entirely? You know, since we don't know what the total outcome of the task force is going to be?
I'm open to that.
Well, I think it's anticipated that once this task force recommends, we will need a White Pond Committee again.
Can we just do that? Can we just go and take a committee and disband it like, without?
Well, I think it empowers this task force to actually think about what is the future role of the White Pond Advisory Committee, rather than us making that
Right,
decision.
right.
So-
Maybe
so
they'll
that's-
recommend disbanding.
Maybe
Let's
they will, maybe
see what they
they'll-
do.
A
Yeah,
different charge, as you said, they might rewrite, well, they will have to rewrite the charge, so,
right.
I don't know, what do you think, Linda?
I'm just, remind me, is the language explicit in here about them?
Yes, it says to recommend the future role of the White Pond
Yeah, they're,
Advisory
okay,
Committee.
so that's fine.
That's the
Great.
purpose, yeah.
Yes, okay. All right, so we're back. So do we want to have a motion to suspend the activities of the White Pond Advisory Committee?
Well, I have it written here, so it's easy to read. So
Okay.
I move to temporarily suspend the White Pond Advisory Committee pending the recommendations of the task force.
To the select board?
Right.
Yes, yes.
To the select board.
Yes.
Yes, all right, we can add that, even though it's not in yellow. Okay.
Okay. There's a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye, thank you.
Okay, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm.
Okay. We are now up to the parking meters discussion.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, thank you. When, I guess it was back at the public hearing for annual town meeting time, the board had some discussion about the future of parking meters. And it seemed at that time that there wasn't a strong consensus to move forward or continue the parking meter program in perpetuity, but we did ask that you sort of reauthorize it for the fiscal year 23, because we have contracts in place through the end of fiscal 23, and it would have been difficult to completely suspend the program. In addition, there we do have a police officer that is assigned to the program, at least part of the course of his activities, and it would have negatively impacted the police budget. And so now, as we look to preparing the fiscal 24 budget, is a much more appropriate time to hear from the board whether or not you would like to continue the parking meter program in the future, or at least for fiscal 24. I do have Gail Dowd, our CFO, who is on Zoom. Gail's department oversees the collection of or the processing of the payments that we receive, and then Lieutenant Kevin Monahan from the police department, his staff oversees the actual enforcement. So they're both here, mostly to answer questions, not necessarily to make any presentation. There is a memo in the packet that talks about some of the issues that we have had with the functioning of the meters, which really stems to the inconsistent and or lack of reliable cell service. So that does have an impact on the ability of the meters to operate and on the maintenance of the meters and the batteries. We do hope in the next couple of months to bring a proposal to you to improve cell service in the downtown, at the center area, not specifically for the parking meters, but really for everybody who's trying to use
That's good news.
cell service in the center area in particular and out to the
It's
high
only
school.
taken 20 years. I mean,
Carrie, what did you say, a few months?
I'm hoping in the next couple of months. We have a study that is very outdated at this point. We're looking to update that study just to understand where we might need to look at additional infrastructure to provide good, strong service in the center area.
I get a lot of comments about that,
Yeah.
the lack of cell service.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do too.
We do. It is a tremendous safety issue for our public safety, that anytime that they are working an incident in the area, there are concerns and sometimes inability to communicate. It's a problem at the schools, out to the high school. There is very limited coverage outside of the high school building. We did hope that we had a solution. We had an opportunity to purchase a property, which you know about, that we lost out on that property. But we do intend to bring back a solution or multiple solutions to you, and we'd like to see something happen because
everybody knows how bad it is. Yeah. But so we don't even have to talk about that. But what I'd like to know about the parking meters is, if we discontinue them, does that mean that they get taken away? And is there a cost to do that? And well, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, so we hadn't necessarily put together any estimate on how much it would cost to remove them, but if the board was not in favor of continuing the program, ultimately we'd like to have them removed, because I think they would cause confusion for people parking in the area if they saw a meter, and just bagging the meters is somewhat unsightly.
And they make it probably twice as hard to plow the sidewalks.
Right.
I would like to
Which
ask.
is I think it's another big issue.
Right. I would like to ask what the purpose of the program is, because I've heard various things about that.
Sure. And I also should have mentioned that Marcia Rasmussen is also on the call. Marcia has been working with this program for a very long time, and Marcia, at any point, if you want to jump in, please do so. But I think my understanding is just, okay, you popped on screen. Does that mean you want to say something, or you're just actively listening?
Both at this time. But you asked what is the purpose of the meters is really to manage the parking. One of the the meters have been in Concord Center since the 1950s. There was a request from the West Concord businesses when the MBTA required that we charge for the commuter parking lot. The concern was that people would park on the street where there was free parking rather than park in the parking lot. So managing those state areas where we are required to collect a fee will impact our local streets. So it's managing parking and making sure that there's turnover so that the spaces on street that are close to the front door of our businesses are in use by the patrons rather than the employees or business owners.
Okay, so I have heard that, and I've also heard the opposite. So I've heard from some businesses that they worry about employees parking there all day, and then the shoppers can't get a spot. But I've also heard businesses say that shoppers would prefer to not have to pay the meters because it's, either you need a quarter or you need cell phone service or, it's a nuisance. And I've been thinking about how we want to be a welcoming community and thinking about a couple other communities like Quincy and Hudson that I know about where they did remove the meters and foot traffic increased and business increased something like 20%. So I think if this is a program we've had since the 1950s, we might want to take another look maybe through the Economic Vitality Committee or the Business Partnership and find out, because I think that parking should be a benefit for the businesses, for the shoppers, and for the residents, and maybe the tourists, not necessarily for commuters. And I think we should try and figure out what is the purpose of this. If we're just collecting money and it's all going to the meter company and one police officer, that's not really serving the residents and the businesses of this town. And that's what I'm really concerned about. If we're just sort of taking in the money to pay for itself and there's no benefits for us.
We're running a fairly good experiment right now and have been for the last 6 months because there's virtually no enforcement of the parking meters.
Correct. And every Saturday, we ran that experiment around Christmas time every year.
However, to some extent, I imagine the presence of the meters act as a deterrent, and they would work just as well if they didn't operate at all.
Right, but we did run that experiment every Sunday where there's free parking, and every Saturday, Christmas time, the month of December, there's free parking. So I haven't heard any businesses complain that, oh my God, Saturday and Sunday, there's too many employees and too many commuters hogging up the spaces. So it makes me think that maybe we don't need meters.
Yeah.
So are we supposed to decide something tonight on this or just to inform ourselves?
Well,
Carrie?
So it would be helpful as we are involved in our fiscal 24 budget planning process to know what the board would like to do relative to parking meters. If you need additional information, there's some sort of study you would like us to do, we can plan for not having that revenue and figure out how to make up within the general fund budget. It becomes more difficult if we push a decision out and we're planning for that revenue, then because it comes from a separate fund, and then we're not planning for it within the general fund budget. And I certainly would not be proposing any reduction in headcount at the police department if this program were to go away. So that's the biggest concern.
So Carrie, I see there is a representative from the police department online. Are there some comments that could be added from their perspective to the parking management aspect of this?
Sure. Lieutenant Monahan, would you like to provide any comment?
Yes, good evening. The parking management over the years has been fairly successful. ever since we went to the smart meters, I think we've had some issues with the cell phone connectivity and the pay by phone aspects. And the batteries, constantly die within the meters. So you have to buy those and replace those on a regular basis as well. So I think historically it's been successful until we went to the smart meters over the last 5 or 6 years.
Thank you.
So the program is breaking even? Is that?
The program for sure was breaking even before the new meters were put in place. I think we had a couple of years where after the new meters were put in place that it was probably running, we certainly weren't making any money. And then as a result of the pandemic and the reduction in collection, that it would be at a deficit, but for we allocated $400,000 of ARPA revenue as lost, the ARPA grant as lost revenue to bring that program back into the black.
So Carrie, you're trying to figure out how to move forward when you're doing your budget, right?
Yes.
And if we keep the meters, we would have to subsidize it somehow through the general fund? Is that what you're saying?
Well, there is a possibility that it would not break even, that it would run at a deficit. The general fund would not subsidize it directly. We just would pull back the personnel expense into the general fund.
Got it.
And I either need to plan for that or take the risk that it's not going to, I guess what the fund balance in the parking meter fund is sufficient now because of the infusion of ARPA revenue. And we could get by, even if collections fell off, we could get by in the next year.
But that's spending
But-
money that we could use for something else.
Right.
It is, and as you can see in the memo, there are upgrades that need to happen that we wouldn't want to do if we were just trying to go for
Right.
another year with the program.
And the officer now that's funded with these revenues, right? Could they be deployed doing some other work for the town?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Right, so we wouldn't be looking to eliminate that position.
I understand, but would that be able to help us not have another incremental hire in the police force? Could they?
Well, we aren't proposing any
okay.
any hires.
But what about attrition? If you had attrition, could you?
Well, we would be looking to maintain the headcount that we have, whether or not we have this program.
Why don't we get rid of them?
I don't see any benefit for residents,
Yeah.
unless the business community says these are the benefits.
I suggest we replace them with car chargers. And
Good
so
idea.
that people will come to
Yeah.
Concord Center and park there to get their batteries recharged, and then they will go and shop and eat while their battery is recharging.
So Marcia's pointed out the reason for the meters in West Concord, particularly for the parking management. And, that could be a problem in terms of how tight the parking is on the street already in that section. So if you had people taking up those spots all day long, then you might hear some business complaints.
That's
Isn't
what you
there
have-
another way to do
That's what
that?
you have
Could
now,
you-
because nobody enforces the parking meters. So we pretty much, and at least the natives are aware of that. So they don't have any deterrent effect anymore.
So I think this evening, the furthest I would like to see you go is to, if you're not inclined to maintain the program, is to go on record for that, to ask us to do some additional study, some additional outreach. We did some outreach to the business partnership, and it came up at a meeting, and the people who were at the meeting, it really was 50-50. We got some additional written feedback afterward, which was pretty much 50-50. I have not talked to EVC directly. I don't think it makes sense to say we're going to remove the meters. I think we would like to be able to do that outreach, to understand if we have better cell coverage, how that might positively impact the meters, but not plan for any revenue for fiscal '24, rather than just say at 8:51 at a meeting that's been particularly difficult that we're just going to do away with parking meters.
Right, but I think the business community should understand that we are going to work on the cell service no matter what, whether we have the meters or we
absolutely.
don't. It's not,
Yes.
right, we don't want them.
We're not working on cell coverage because of the meters. That
Correct.
will just be a bonus to.
Right, that's going to happen anyway. And then separate from that, what do you
Fingers
think
crossed.
about meters?
So,
Yeah, it'll be good to do that outreach.
so do you need anything? Do you need a vote from us? Is that,
No, unless I'm misunderstanding the conversation, it seems that the interest in continuing the program is lukewarm at best. So we will not plan on that revenue for the fiscal '24 budget.
a little cooler than lukewarm.
Okay, tepid.
Tepid. Oh, that's good. Tepid.
Okay.
So Carrie, do you want to reach out to the EVC and the chamber, or shall I, since I'm the liaison?
Sure, if you would like to do that, that would be helpful.
Okay, so in the Concord Business Partnership.
So the challenge there is getting wide membership representation besides who's at those meetings when this comes up.
I can alert the chair that this is something that I'd like to hear from them, and then the people who show up will be the people who have the opinion. I'm not going
And
to
in
have
the
a
past-
survey, but I will let them know that we're going to talk about this, and hopefully the people who show up will be the people who have strong, well, and thoughtful opinions.
Marcia has her hand raised.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Marcia.
If I may, just an issue that Lieutenant Monahan mentioned is the batteries that function on the meters. Because of the shade and where they're located on the street, it makes it extraordinarily difficult to keep them charged properly. And so we end up having to replace a lot of them. So continuing with meters on the street may not be the best solution. It may be that we take a break from enforcing the meters and look at alternatives. And there might be other ideas that we'll discover along the way. So I wouldn't say yes, no, definitely one way or the other. There may be other options in the future. And once we have cell service, and if we could look at kiosks perhaps, or other opportunities, that might work better than what we currently have. So I think a period of exploration is really valuable.
Okay, sounds good. Pamela Dritt, do you have a quick comment?
Yes, Pamela Dritt, 13 Concord Green. I think Henry's attitude is exactly right. I think we should stop throwing good money after bad and make ourselves a welcoming community. It clearly works on Saturdays and Sundays and holidays. I think people's fears tend to be overblown. So please, let's find another way and use the money for better things and encourage walking and browsing and spur of the moment visiting of shops. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we're ready to move on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is, there was a motion about committee nominations, but we don't move, that is, they are not nominated by
Right.
motion. So we'll move right on to the committee appointments. Is that right? Is that the next item on the agenda?
Right, we're nominating Michael Ben of 747 Old Marlborough Road to the Public Ceremonies and Celebrations Committee. Okay. And Alyssa Erhardick of 263 Commonwealth Ave.
But those
to
are
the-
nominations.
Those are the nominations.
Okay, all right.
Okay. And now the appointments.
I move to appoint Deb Green of 341 Madison Drive to the Concord Board of Health, reappointed for a term of May 1st, 2022 to April 30th, 2025, exempted from term limits pursuant to Section 7B1 of APP number 10, Town Appointment Policy. Mark Hanson of 340 Holdenwood Road to Pollinator Health Advisory Committee, reappointed with a date of May 1st, 2020 to April 30th, 2023. Ryan Hanley of 77 Lexington Road to the Historical Commission as an associate member for a term of August 8th, 2022 to May 31st, 2023. Virginia McIntyre of 26 Simon Willard Road, reappointed to the Tax Relief Committee for a term of May 1st, 2022 to April 30th, 2025. Betsy Levinson of 124 Neshoba Road, reappointed to the Concord Cultural Council with a term of June 1, 2021 to May 31st, 2024.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Now we're ready for liaison reports. Who would like to go first?
I can go first.
All right.
Briefly. The Concord Housing Authority signed their agreement with Habitat, and we heard about that this evening. The Development Corporation had just received the letter from Grantham and discussed that, but also voted to seek alternate funding sources for the Assabet River Bluff project. And the,
Say
what
that
do
again,
you
Lynn?
mean by that?
well, that would include a CPC application that I know has been submitted, but also looking for other sources of funds to move the project forward.
Like what?
Well, it might mean coming to the town, it might mean going back to CPC, it might mean going to the trust. It depends on where the money is.
Oh, I thought you, okay, I misheard you. I thought you meant going outside and doing maybe fundraising.
No. I also attended the first couple of items on the personnel board meeting because I was interested in the employee appeal process and how that's operating. We've already, and I did attend the FinCom just to, and got a sense of specifically to hear their discussion about Christopher Heights and the middle school building project. And we've heard what their sense of the meeting was for Christopher Heights. And then the 225 Executive Committee kickoff, and I've already told Henry, I thought that was a wonderful session on Sunday. A couple of us attended that, and a lot of energy, and looking forward to what comes next.
Well, we had about 60 people there, and it was, I think, pleasant and productive.
Yes.
Very good.
And I'm really glad about the enthusiasm that's been generated for this event. That's one of the most important events, you know, celebrating one of the most important events in the history of our town.
I was particularly impressed by the 1925 video and by Rob Monroe facilitating those breakout groups. They were
Yeah.
really productive.
Yeah,
Got a lot done.
We've got a terrific bunch of people in that
Yep.
committee, and it shows that civic spirit is still alive and well.
Linda, was that your entire report?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Henry, do you
Well,
have more?
That's all
Okay.
I have to report.
Okay.
And it was all videoed, and it will be available on the Minuteman Network.
Great. as well as that 1925 video?
Well, I've asked Diane Proctor to talk to our communications director about getting the links to
Great.
the videos, not only from 1925, but we have 2 videos from 1975, 50 years ago, and getting all those links on
Great.
our section of the town website so people can actually look at what happened in the past.
Good, excellent, great. Okay, Mary?
Really briefly, I went to the annual meeting of the Concord Business Partnership, and Simone Monteleone was the speaker. And so she was talking about the 250th, and she was saying that she's losing sleep over how to transport all the people. So that was just interesting to hear. But she'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
She was, she's been a great asset
Very
for us,
good.
and
Yeah,
you know,
she's great.
obviously a key person because some of the big events take place in her park.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's great. Anyway, that's all I have.
So speaking of transportation, Carrie mentioned the trolley is going to be running until November. And it's an actual looking trolley now. It's very, very good looking.
Cool.
And residents are encouraged to try it and give feedback on the trolley website. Also, the Transportation Committee heard about the Chamberlain Park footbridge, which is that bridge back here connecting to Caius Road. And they're looking for grants or other means to fund the replacement. So maybe CPC next year, I don't know. And Erin Stevens is now the transportation planner, and she's starting to work on an RFP for a consultant for an overall strategy for transportation in town. I think we really need that. That would give the committee and the select board and everyone kind of a sense of purpose of what's the committee going to do, what are we going to do. And I attended the hazard mitigation Zoom webinar that Carrie mentioned, and this is a FEMA requirement. In order to receive FEMA grants, we have to have a municipal vulnerability preparedness plan. And I learned that they're projecting it to go up more than 4 degrees Fahrenheit in Concord by 2049. And we're going to have 15 more days over 90 degrees by 2044, and more rainfall with larger storms. And the Personnel Board is continuing to hear testimony and consider the appeal of employees who have appealed at the CMLP regarding the classification plan. And there's one more thing that I can't find. So that's the end of my report.
That's good.
So Terry, if I just may ask, since Erin's now the transportation planner, was it talked about who would be, where requests for communication issues would go at this point?
Carrie, do you want to answer that?
Sure. Erin is helping temporarily, but to the town manager's office.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I don't think we have a motion on here because Matt doesn't like motions to adjourn.
Well, we just need to ask if there's
Oh.
any more public comment.
So,
Stefan, come on up to the microphone.
Thank you for indulging me. Stefan Bader, 7 River Street. I have a different hat on now as a board member of the League of Women Voters. It doesn't make any difference. It's a little bit moot, but it was my fault that you didn't get the letter from the board league, and I would like to add that to the evidence at this point, even though it come in late and clearly didn't make
Absolutely.
any difference, but I wanted to.
Absolutely. We received quite a few letters today, and I think Friday, and we can put them all in the next packet.
I spoke with Matt today, and we're going, anything that comes in after Friday at noon, we're just gonna add to the following meeting packet, so it still will be on the record.
Okay, good, and then that way we'll see them as well.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
can I make a suggestion? because there's been, we talked about a communications policy last time. And maybe it would be something we ought to consider is having something on the town website where correspondence to the board and to other town committees just goes up on the town website in a correspondence section on the website. I mean, then it goes up, immediately and on a timely way, and it doesn't get, bogged down in an administrative process. It obviously would have to have some, review for appropriateness and so on.
Yeah.
But at a very low level.
So I think various select board members respond to the public letters that come in as they come in, thanking people for, their comments or answering their questions or whatever. And if it just goes directly to a website, there isn't the opportunity to easily do that. Let me put it that way.
Carrie?
So I think because you just adopted a policy, it would be helpful if we could follow that at least for a short period of time and, provide some feedback. And I would encourage members of the public who are interested in submitting letters for particular agenda items, that if they could do that, even a week before the meeting or as soon as possible. We often hear that we're not able to provide the agenda packet to board members in a timely fashion, and we're still receiving letters from the public, on Friday, on Monday of the meeting, and we just can't process them when they're coming in that late.
So would Thursday by noon?
Thursday by noon would be wonderful.
Okay.
Right, and otherwise they can go, as Shannon said, on the following week's agenda.
Right.
And that used to be a real hard deadline when the police department would deliver the packet in person to the homes of the select board members.
Yeah, that's right. I remember those days, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank
And
you for
I've,
indulging me this time.
Sure.
But thank you.
No, look, we
Thank you for
appreciate the
staying.
fact that you
Yeah.
stick around.
I did,
Waiting for the right slot.
okay, thank you.
Well,
And,
there's nobody here to contradict you, is there?
well, we have a couple other people. Let me just mention really quick that I found my other comment, which I think you'll be interested in. I went to the Fiscal Policy Committee of the MMA, and they're going to recommend a state agency similar to the MSBA. And this state agency is going to, it's being proposed to be able to give out money for public safety, public works, and other municipal construction buildings.
Wow.
So it would be like the MSBA. So this is something the MMA is doing that I wanted to tell you about.
How about for schools?
We already have the MSBA,
Yeah,
and they're going to
okay.
model it like that for municipal buildings, for good and bad. Okay, we have Pamela Dritt and then Tanya Galis.
Hi, Pamela Dritt, 13 Concord Green, Unit 4. I wondered, is there a reason that the select board cannot do open meeting exposure of letters and things the same way and documents the same way that the planning board does? Is there something?
What does the
means that
planning
you
board
can't
do?
that? They have a link to the website on the agenda that allows anyone to go to that link and to read through all of the documents such that is in your packet and such that even if it came in late and it wouldn't have been printed, you could still read it there. So that I believe the deadline for submission to letters to the board would have been, for the planning board, is like noon on the day of the meeting or 3 p.m. the day before, something like that.
Well, we do have a link that has all the board packet materials.
Yes, but it doesn't have the letters
And
people have submitted, all of them. And I understand we want to not be, we want to avoid, like trolls or terrible, vicious commentaries. But I would think that that would be such an exception that it wouldn't justify removing public letter comments and not having all of them in there.
I think the difficulty, I'm not sure, Pamela, but what I think is happening is we do have a link where all the agenda materials can be found. But some staff person like Shannon has to put that together. And like, for example, this week, our packet was 199 pages long. So
I
if,
understand that. I found it, but it's not easy to find. I was at the
Right.
League of Women Voters meeting today, and people were having very much trouble finding out, for instance, was the letter from the League on the packet? I read through all 100 and some pages. I found it in a list of letters, but not published as the letter itself.
right, so what I'm saying is that if a letter comes in after our staff has put together the packet, then it would have to go into the next packet. That's my understanding of the process right now. And I think I agree with Carrie. We just voted this new process. Let's give it a few months and see if it's working. And then we can work to improve it.
Don't you have the same electronic storage organization method for the select board that the planning board has?
Yes, we do.
Well, then couldn't you do it the way the planning board does it?
So what I'm saying is that the select board voted a policy and we're following the policy. And it would be helpful if we could do that for at least a short period of time to understand how we might improve that. It is, as I mentioned, it is very difficult when letters are coming in last minute with everything that's going on in the office to be able to update. So sometimes we're not seeing them. We receive hundreds and hundreds of contacts on a daily basis. And so it's not always easy to see things that are coming in last minute.
I understand, and I appreciate that. Could you not, though, put a link to the packet in
Yes,
the
we do
agenda?
have that. We do have that link to the packet. Am I correct?
We do.
No.
She's asking for it to be added to the agenda, if I understand.
That's right.
You go to the town website, you click on government, and you click on select board, and then you can click
Right.
on a link that takes you to
Right.
the entire packet,
Correct.
including the agenda, when it is put up on the website.
Correct.
Right. And I think what Pamela is saying is on the agenda itself, the front page
That's
of,
right.
of the agenda, that there be a link. The finance committee has a link in their agenda template to
The
the
reason that
packet.
works for boards like that is they only have typically only have a few items, and they are specifically directed to a specific
Right.
and small number of agenda items. A typical planning board agenda might only have 4 or 5 items on it, and you have things, so it's a little bit different because we get a lot more stuff. And it's actually, it makes them, I think, less accessible if you have a separate link to each one, because
No.
you have to open the links to find out what they are.
Okay.
But anyway.
All
let's
right,
move
well,
on.
A link to the packet.
Yeah,
Okay,
I know
we
what she's-
understand.
I know what she's-
Thank you. Tanya?
Yes.
Tanya, you're on mute.
Sorry, here it goes. Yeah. The difference with the planning board's website is that they only list the documents that are relevant to that meeting. And then you can't find them as easily afterwards, like you can find all the select board packets in that list. So that's one difference. The comment I wanted to make was that in terms of submitting letters by Thursday noon, the agenda itself is not published until Thursday afternoon usually. So it is I mean, one might have things to write that they know about before Thursday, but sometimes we don't know what to write until we even like see the packet itself. So I understand that it needn't be in the same packet, but as long as the select board is aware of the comments that are made after the agenda is posted, and then whenever that I mean, I assume that's okay, right? I'm just saying that it's hard to know what to write about the agenda before we see the agenda or right after we see the agenda.
Right, okay.
It's a good point. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, I think we are ready to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Another.